Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. This is episode 205, and I'm super excited to have Alec Lewis on, and he's one of my friends, but he's here locally with me, but he has a great backstory, and he has just a huge amount of passion for the industry of design and animation. And so I'm really excited to kind of share his story with y'all. So Alec, thanks for being here. Oh, and I'm Diane Gibbs. Did I say that? Yes. I always forget.
Yeah, no, I thank you, Diane. Thank you for having me, and I'm excited just to share. And the more people that know about animation, the better.
So let's get into it. So you started out in theater, right?
Yes.
So tell us, because that kind of seems like an unlikely but really great superpower to have in your back pocket as an animator, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Tell us a little bit about it. So you grew up in North Carolina.
Yes. I grew up in North Carolina. Ever since I was a kid, I've always had a big imagination, and to see things move and to think about the way things are. Like I always was coming up with stories when I was a kid, and I mean, like, to the point where I'd like dress up my brother so he'd be part of the story. And then as I got older, I got to the point where I was filming, and then I got into theater, and the theater was perfect because I could use all my, ideas in one place. And then with the theater, I learned, how to kind of tell a better story or get more focused in certain areas. But yeah, it helps me tremendously all the time because perspective, like I get so much perspective from the theater, and I could go in and to think about a role or think about a character or think about a scene. And nowadays I use that all the time. I go into create a problem, and I try to find a creative solution for the problem using movement.
Right, but it's a way you think as well. Yeah. And I feel like having that the background in the theater, you're thinking about the whole part. Mm-hmm. You're also thinking about audience interaction and who's reading what and who's the hero. And I think you're thinking about all those parts. And sometimes as a designer coming into that, for me, it's not super natural. So it's like the background, kind of stage set, right? That's important, but it's also the music that's important. That's also all those things kind of come into play. So there is always a problem, and sometimes it doesn't. And some of them is just a time crunch problem. Hey, you have 5 seconds. What can you get done, right?
Right. Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, the theater again helped with that too. I mean, just the amount of focus you put into a scene, or you try to make sure that you how can you best inform the audience in the most simple way. And you create for the moment kind of thing. And like nowadays it's the same thing. It's you're trying to find the big idea, and you're trying to solidify that with intent. Like you're trying if that makes sense. Yeah. So you went to
undergrad, and where did you do that? Did you say
I went to Greensboro College.
Oh, okay.
Greensboro College, yeah.
And you studied theater there?
I did.
And then you worked in theater?
Yes, I worked up in Massachusetts. I worked at the Berkshire Theater Festival. That was a lot of fun. I got to work with really awesome people. I mean, the theater the undergrad I went to was fantastic. I loved Greensboro College. Reminds me a lot of some of the schools down here. But the intensity at what we learned, I mean, the specificity, one of my professors, David Schramm, taught me specificity. And it's, getting into the detail, the nitty gritty of the thing that you're working on, and trying to pull out all the details you can. So you can find those triggers and those things to create or I like to make better creations, I guess.
So that helps now, that specificity, which is actually a really hard word to say, I think, over and over. But so then you worked in theater, and then you decided what was happening in your life that you were like, hey, I need a change.
Well, I came back from Massachusetts, and I toured with the band. That was fun. My photography was actually going further than my my acting and my directing and that sort of stuff. And the professional theater world, it's a tough world. And like, I appreciated all the people I was around. I was around really super creative people, but I just didn't feel like my career was, the trajectory of it wasn't going where I wanted to go. And also was getting kind of like I wanted more. I just wanted to find, how can I utilize things I'm doing now, but in a different aspect. So I went to photography, and I worked at a photo studio after I went touring with the band. And then the photo studio was great, but then that got boring because kids and families all day long. I mean, it's a lot. So I was dating a girl who had some ties to this grad school kind of place, magical place, the Creative Circus. And that's when I checked it out. I went to one of their open houses and thought, this is it. This is where I'm going to get my next, like, this is my career. This is where my career is going to start.
So there are multiple creative circuses, right? So or is there just one?
There's just one. There's just one. Yeah. This creative circus is in Atlanta.
Okay.
And they're just tremendous. I mean, I learned how to be an art director. I learned how to use my other skills to, communicate to the other disciplines like copywriters and designers. And, it was I wouldn't trade anything in the world for my experience at the Creative Circus.
So Joe, who is a longtime viewer, and he was on the show recently, he used to teach at Creative Circus, and he said Norm Gray is brilliant. Do you know who Norm Gray is?
Yeah. Oh yes. Norm is like Yoda. He's he every little sentence he bestows on you, he gets excited. I mean, and that's the kind of thing, when I left the circus, I wanted to bring that energy to the agency that I was going to. And I did. I came in and started a whole animation department here, basically at Red Square. So when I jumped, I came over here, and they had done a lot of outsourcing of their animation, and I was like, well, we're going to do in-house stuff. So it's been fun. It's been a good time.
So how long have you been at Red Square?
3.5 years almost.
So did you come straight out of the Creative Circus to, because when you say the circus, it kind of makes me feel like you were like twirling donkeys juggling. And lions. But yeah. It's pretty intense. I mean, sometimes you feel like you're in the circus. But it's the circus. It's just a really intense program. It's really fun. So how long was that program? 2 years. 2 years. It was, like 10 weeks on, and then you had 2 weeks off. I think that's how it goes. But it was like 8 quarters. And through the quarters, every quarter you're building and making and coming up with ideas and concepting and you're putting a book together. Basically, that's what you're doing, is coming out with an awesome portfolio. Right. And you're meeting people that are making Super Bowl commercials. I mean, you're meeting these people that are just phenomenal creatives. And it's something that I will always take with me. And I will, I love the Creative Circus. It's a great place. But in terms of design, in terms of coming up with the ideas, they really teach you how to think and how to, take an idea to the next level. But didn't you feel like that your theater background was a big advantage for you in animation? Oh, definitely. Especially because they don't offer animation they offer classes there at the circus, but animation was just one of my many things that I had with me. The theater helped me communicate. It helped me, I walked into the circus, and I had already met a ton of people through the people that I had talked about the circus. So like before I came in, I knew 2 or 3 people that I had already got excited about the circus, and they quit their jobs and moved down to Atlanta and started, art directing and copywriting. And then I came in with the girl I was talking to or dating. We come in and I had already met a ton of people, and we started making stuff right away. And, that was kind of the theater helped me in that I was able to communicate with all these people and come up with ideas just all the time. Like that's the fun thing. It's like concepting and finding something to, something needs to be better, or, right. And and telling the story, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes
definitely.
it's like you're doing the research to find the story behind it. There was something, and I don't know if you have it pulled up and you could show it, but one of my, and it was way down on the list, but since we're talking about the circus so much, I believe you did this when you were in Atlanta.
Yes.
And it looks like maybe Little 5 Points area or something, and it was about the sex trade and really human trafficking.
Yes.
And you had put a girl in like a
vending machine.
Yeah, in a vending machine. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because that you do have to kind of get people. So somebody had to be filming the whole time.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be kind of making sure the girl's safe, right?
Sure.
But then the whole idea. So was this kind of a group project?
It was the group project. Well, it was actually a class assignment, and I do actually have it pulled up. If I hit, I'm going to click this. I'm going to try it here. That's not it. Let's try this. There it is. Okay. So yeah. So basically, it was a class assignment. They asked us to get a nonprofit, and so the nonprofit was not for sale. And this was a group that's trying to raise awareness for stopping the human trafficking. And we did some research and found that there was like the most human trafficking in America right now is all in Atlanta because of the airport. And so we were trying to come up with ideas, and I was working with two copywriters, Patrick Q and David Capolino. And both of them were we would just brainstorm and come up with, how can we tell this in a different way? And we sort of stumbled into the vending machine idea by just kind of, I don't know, like concepting. That's one of my favorite things in the world to do is, you're trying to come up with something that will get people's attention. And the vending machine was like, we could do that. Like, that's a real thing that we could actually, like, it's a great visual idea. But then it was like, well, how do we actually make it happen? How do we get the vending machine? And so we started calling, vending machine places and asking for their old vending machines and broken down things. And then while we were doing that, we were also designing how it was going to look and using some of the colors and things that they already used for, so if it does somehow get big or whatnot, it would be, or gets attention or traction or whatnot, then it would, be something that we could, actually put out there in the world. But so we got the vending machine pretty easily. And once we got that, and then we were like, let's just keep going. And inside the vending machine, they donated money. We had a good amount of money that we got, and as I recall, we sent it to the actual organization, which I think is in San Francisco. I think that's where they're based. But we had a little. They put money in, and the vending machine actually worked. It actually sent out little tokens or the keychains, and inside the keychain they had information, websites, stuff like that to go to. Looking back at it, it's one of those things I wish I could have done even more with it. And now that I know more, I'm like, yeah, I could make this more of a 360 campaign and more ideas. And it's the digital component to it is pretty slim. So it's like, now I could probably animate something a little more, fierce to, get people's attention and stuff.
Can you hit play so they can kind of see it while you're talking about it?
Sure. Oh, I'm just going to turn it down there.
We can't hear it, unfortunately.
Okay.
I guess because it's
here. Is that better?
Yeah, we can't hear it.
Okay, you can't hear. Okay, that's good.
Because it's through I think because of that. But
gotcha. Okay.
But you kind of get the idea, right?
Yeah. It's a fun.
So you actually were plugged in.
Yes, we were plugged in. We actually did it 2 different times, as I recall. The first time we did it, it was kind of a test run. This was the second time. The first time, I can't.
Did people want to get her out?
Yeah, some people were really, like they were kind of like, what's this all about? And are you okay? And she, she tried to get there, talk to them, and try to kind of conversate with them or whatnot, so that they would kind of I don't know. So they feel okay about putting the money in. Part of it was we wanted to get all the shots we needed too, because again, it started as a class assignment, and then we kind of just kept it going, making it bigger and bigger, as big as we could in the time that we had to do it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and that's powerful. So some of the things that you're doing at work might not be as like life-changing, right? But for a company, it might be, and sometimes they just need something quick. And you're really tasked with a lot of things. So at Red Square, talk about some of the stuff that you kind of do there. And what were you hired? Were you hired to do animation? Or you weren't? You were hired as an art director?
Well, they needed an art director and an animator, and I was like, well, I do both. And I do mostly, I mean, like art. I do animation mainly, but I've done art directed storyboards, and I've done a couple of things here and there to still have my art direction there. I'm a very digital person. I know that's kind of silly of me, but like at the same time, I really like staying in the digital world as much as possible. I'm even trying to use more 3D stuff for like, storyboarding and like the pre-visualization stuff now. But yeah, when I got hired mainly to get the animation in-house. And we do a lot of promotional things we've got kind of two arms at our agency. We have one side actually have three arms now. We're kind of like a weird octopus. We've got the one side that does like casinos and that sort of thing. We got Hard Rock and Cherokee casinos. And then we also have another side that does traditional advertising, RSQ, that's that side. And we have University of Alabama and a couple other little places that we've done some work for. And then we also have our people up in Chicago. We have a Chicago office that mainly does the website stuff. And they're getting bigger and bigger. I'm excited about the Chicago office because it just opens up more potential for, things.
Yeah, more different things for you to kind of have fun and play with.
Oh, yeah.
So are you still the only animator out of all three arms?
Not exactly anymore. For a time we had another animator, and he's since left. And then before that, I trained two other people how to animate.
But locally, you were doing that. It wasn't like in Chicago, there's somebody. No. Okay.
No. And we do have a new motion designer who does a lot of web stuff, and he's great. He's doing good stuff. I'm still trying to. I'm trying to expand everything. I really want more. I have an intern right now. She's fabulous. She's one of my former students, and she just works really hard. Like that's all you can ask for, really.
Right. Well, so it sounds like you had to kind of learn a lot of this on your own, and then to keep up, you have to continually learn.
Oh, definitely.
This wasn't one of our questions, and I have like 13 questions that I need to get back to the list. But what do you do? Because I do think that this is so you hired as an art director, but you had a bigger vision.
Yeah.
And so you've really kind of taken this on your own and then grown this and had interns and done this part of the thing. So talk about how do you keep honing your skills?
I watch a lot of tutorials. I still do every day. I try to keep myself, I try to push myself as much as I can. I also really like it when I don't know something. I see something really cool and I'm like, how do they do that? And then I try to break it down. I also like it when people come to me and say, oh, I want to film a short movie or something like that. That gets me excited because I'm like, oh yeah, I can help. I want to be a part of that. When it falls all on me to, make it happen, then it gets a little crazy, but I still like a challenge. And I also like the being around creative people. So that's the honing the skills. I feel like when I'm around people that are hungry, that want that have that desire, then that's when I like, oh well, let's try this, so let's try that. So I kind of think of animation as four segments, and I'm probably missing out because this is not my area. So there's 2D and 3D animation, right? But then there's also motion graphics, and then there's also video, because that's something like some people do the video and they don't do the animation that goes in, and then some people do motion graphics, which
maybe that's using some stills, but you really kind of have a interest in all, and you've done all of those. Is there more segments?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's like hand-drawn animation. There's like the traditional kind of, like, when people ask me, when I tell them I'm an animator, a lot of times people say, oh, you make cartoons, or oh, and I'm like, well, I don't really do the hand-drawn stuff. I like it a lot. I just don't illustrate very well. So I always use other ways of making it. Yes, that's true. I am trying to draw more. Partly the tools that I have now are like, each year they get better and better and more fantastic. So there's tools now that I can use to make something in 3D, which I feel really comfortable in, and I can make it look like it's drawn, as opposed to like, and so then I can start emulating other styles of animation to, tell a story, especially if it needs to be another style, because I do like having as much variety in my work as possible.
Right. So CJ has a question. Are there any YouTube channels that you subscribe to for animation tutorials, or do you watch lynda.com or Skillshare, or what?
Lynda's great for like the base kind of, teaching the buttons kind of thing, and, real simple things. But I really enjoy for like the next level stuff, the School of Motion. School of Motion is awesome. The guy who runs that is just, he knows what he's doing. And he came out of Ringling, and that's like a circus place, but it's in Florida, and they do more of the, animation, like straight animation kind of stuff. Then there's Grayscale Gorilla. If you're really into Cinema 4D, I love cinema, so that's Grayscale Gorillas. They're awesome. They have some stuff in there that's After Effectsy too, but most of their stuff is straight, after Cinema 4D. But yeah, Lester Banks is another one. I'll give you one more. Yeah, Lester Banks. He has all kinds of stuff on his. So
is that a website or
website?
Okay.
Well, I think it's the guy's name too. I haven't met him, but like I did go to the After Effects World Conference, and I went there a couple years ago, and I met a lot of like really cool people that make plugins, and I met the Adobe team that makes After Effects, which was the coolest thing. It was like meeting like rock stars. I mean, they're real nerdy and geeky, but they were great people. Like, right. So cool. So that kind of leads into Elizabeth has a question. If you go to any conferences, and what really helps you? So the Adobe After Effects. Yes. The World Conference, that was awesome. They now put that together with Premiere. So like Premiere and After Effects are trying to, help each other out in terms of the crowd. And I not last year, but the year before last, I sent I was like, I want my intern to go to that, because I had such a good experience with it. I was like, he's got to go, because it's important to go to conferences. It's important to see what other people are doing, so that you get a better perspective about what you're doing, like what you're doing in the bigger picture of, animation out there. It pushed me to do more stuff when I came back. So I'm excited. Right now I want to get to a conference later this year. I'm hoping for it. It's the end of the year, and same sort of thing, where it's a lot of motion graphics designers and that sort of stuff. But, all right. So, well, let's get to question 2. We have kind of done other questions, and then we're going to jump back to question 10 and kind of get into this. So what would you tell your younger self to do differently if you could go back in time? And then how far back would you take yourself? I would tell myself that I need to learn math. Like I use math a whole lot more than I thought I would. And it's practical math, and I physics, like if I had taken a real physics class, I like right now in animation, there's some things I can do that like all of a sudden I can have everything, obey gravity, and then I can adjust that. And the more knowing how to do that, it's taken me a while to learn that. So, yeah. Johnny just said math. I'm out. Yeah. I mean, I was a theater, baseball player. That's what I did when I was growing up. And then when baseball stopped and theater kept going, I just didn't see a use for it. And right now, another thing is like being able to like, you know, for the future, when we get older, it's like running a business or doing anything like that has math involved, and it's practical, and it's like, you know, trying to figure out how to, you know, how do you do all this stuff, this extra stuff? And I'm getting better at it, but it has been like a definitely learning curve. For
sure. Well, it's good to know. I mean, I use like simple math also, but you have to use like proportions, like if I'm, you know, trying to draw something or so. There is some math, and math can be fun, but maybe not all math.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So one of the things coming out of school, you got a job as an I think having a theater background allowed you to kind of say, hey, I see a bigger picture, and I see what we could do at Red Square with more, you know. I see that we don't just have to be, and I don't just have to be an art director. I actually could be your art director in animation, and we could build a whole department. So I think having that, some of that big picture is definitely entrepreneurial spirit, right? But then how did you market yourself? Because you were able to kind of come straight out of that. What were you doing, and how do you market yourself now? And do you do any freelance stuff or things like that?
I do a little freelance here and there when I feel right now like I'm not plumber, but like the things I make right now outside of work are very, you know, just simple, very simple. And it's partly because of time. I mean, I'm pretty busy all the time with, you know, Red Square. And then I also teach. So that's a lot to kind of handle. And the little projects I do here and there, they're fun. They're a lot of fun, but they're ones that I know I can get done in, you know, a short amount of time. As far as marketing myself, that's probably like, if you were to ask me what my weakness is right now, it's like marketing myself is something that I just haven't thought about. And it's something that, like, I was working on my website recently, and I was trying to make it, you know, update it with all these new things. And it's like, yeah, I need to be doing this like every week or every month or every quarter or something. And it's funny how that, like, when you don't think about it, it like builds up, and it's kind of like, oh, this is a huge wave of work. Yeah.
That is overwhelming. So I know somebody who's in broadcast, either on the news or whatever, and they do it once a week. They take time to do their kind of demo. They look at what they've done in the week and then put up certain things, which I actually think is smart, because it does get overwhelming. It's much easier to just kind of let it pass by. So, so that would be something you would work on. What would you do if you would do it more often? And then what else would you do?
I would create some systems. Like, that's the other thing. At work, I've got all these systems that I can type something in and it works, and it just does what I want it to do. Working on something that you're not working on in a long while, and you're like, oh yeah, I need to put some stuff up there. And then it's like, oh wait, it doesn't do what I'm telling it to do because it has its own system, and I've got to work that in. So it's creating systems to make it work more efficiently for me, and to be able to, you know, plan stuff out a little better in terms of like, oh yeah, I want to show this off. I want to, like, in terms of any kind of project I work on, I always try to look at, you know, what's the problem, like what's the issue that's, you know, obstacle in front of me, and how can I you know, creatively get in front of it? How can I get around it, or how can I use it to my advantage? So, like, you know, in terms of promoting myself, I definitely am going to update everything and get everything together. And it's just right now, just making sure that I've got all the pre-work done of, you know, this file format needs to be this and that, and then I need to upload it all into Vimeo. and like, it's funny because there's lots of steps, and yeah.
So do you think that having systems in place, but also being able to say no to some things is important? Because you are teaching and working, and it's not like you're just 8 to 5.
Right.
Like, you're there at 3 a.m. sometimes, right?
Yeah. I enjoy working. I enjoy making stuff. But yeah, you're right. Saying no there's some things I should say no to more often. That is a hard thing. It's definitely a hard thing. I find it that I like as many opportunities as possible, so I have more choices. And then sometimes those opportunities, they might not, like, if I can delegate, or if I can create a system for somebody else to come in and be like, all right, you can do this part of this project, and I'll do this part of this project, and we'll make sure it all gets done. And it would be better than what I could come up with, just me, you know, trying to bulldoze through it. I like coming up with those smart solutions, and it is tricky sometimes because sometimes you just don't have the time. But you know,
it's also building a team, right? And putting the right people in place and knowing what people's strengths are, and then also giving. That's one thing I think you're really good at is seeing what people's strengths are, but then also pushing them to continue their as an educator. It's the educator in you when you're at work that keeps people pushing to go to the next thing. Like you were telling me what advice you were giving your intern now. You were like, dream big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. The other day she was asking me about what's next for her because, you know, she's about to graduate school and she's about to go off and do big things. And I told her, I was like, go big. And I think she had an internship or like a phone call for the mill, which I was like, the mill, that's an amazing place. Go to the mill, like go big, go to that interview. And, I feel like when I came out of school the first time, like an undergrad, I didn't go big enough, but at the same time, it was one of those things. I liked where I was going, and I liked the idea of I was assistant directing, and I was like, yeah, this will be good. This will be a good little bridge to the next thing. When I got into the circus, and I knew I was getting out of the circus, I was like, I'm going to go as big as I can go, and as quickly as I can go, because just getting out of the circus is like I don't want to be stuck in one spot. So when I jumped down to Mobile, people kind of shook their head. But at the same time, I was going into a place that I knew I could instantly make a difference. And that's one thing about small shops I do like. I do like the idea of making a difference immediately.
But it's not just making a difference in your life. You made a difference in a lot of other people's lives, and you also saw opportunity for the company as a whole. And I feel like that's a really good way. It takes some self-analysis, and I think that it's something that you're also good at, is kind of looking at a situation and looking at how you can grow and also what you can really offer. And I feel like with a lot of graduates, it's hard for them to see how they could fit in and how they could be an asset to a company instead of just another cog. Hey, I can design like you guys design. Because really they don't need, I mean, they need people like that, but those people, we can find somebody else to design our way. You know, you show me what you can do?
Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, that's like, you want to show that you have something to offer, and you want to show that you're different in some way. That, like, you know, there's somebody at Circus, I cannot remember who it was, but somebody said that, you know, you're the quote's right on the tip of my tongue. It's there. I can't remember it. I
hate when that happens.
Yeah, it's just like right there. I don't want to butcher the quote. That's why I'm like, but basically it's like you're just trying to make sure that when you come out of the circuit, when you come out of anywhere you're going, you're trying to make sure you're, you know, you, and you're trying to like use the things that you have that you've experienced, and you use it in a way that, like, you know, propels not just you forward, but everything forward. So,
that's hard though, to know you know, especially. So for me, I think that's hard as like somebody who's trying to become an illustrator. Like, how do I draw? And so I feel like I just need to explore a lot of different ways, or a lot of different subject matters and things like that. And I feel like, do you think there's anything that we could do, even coming right out of school or not, and just thinking about maybe changing our field or going from print to UX or something like that? Because it seems like you're really good at kind of touching a center of what you want to do. How do you do that?
Going back to theater, it's you know, you gotta know, to know you, to figure out what you have to offer. You know, you got to kind of look at all the layers. You know, I always break things down into layers, or break it down into pieces. And I know I can do this, and I know I can do that, and just having confidence. That's one thing I think that you could do, is give them something, the students, something to hold on to, something that's theirs, something that they can be proud of and say, okay, I got that. Now it's next. Now what's the next thing I'm going to do? And then you kind of build from that spot. You kind of make a foundation with those confident moments and those confident. And again, I'm not saying doing it like, you know, oh, that was a great job. It's got to be a real thing. It's got to be something that's of them, that, and it can be small. It doesn't have to be huge. Just small things lead up to bigger things. And
When I feel like when there's a struggle,
yeah,
but then they overcome, and you're the guide, if it's an intern or say you're the employer and this is a person, that they're not probably going to work for you forever. So you have to like think about what they're going to take. I mean, in school, it's really easy. What are you going to learn from me this semester that you're going to learn next semester?
Right.
But I think you kind of have that mentality even in the workplace too.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. And the workplace is great because, people are getting paid so that they have a little bit more skin in the game. I mean, sometimes when I was in school, people just kind of had this, I'll just wake up tomorrow and go back to school. Work's different. Work, you don't know if you're going to have that job tomorrow. If you're slacking off, you don't know. So that's one of the things you got to push hard. You got to challenge yourself. When you do find yourself at a lull, you got to, find those sparks. And I create sparks. I can't sit around and wait for sparks. So a lot of times I try to plant seeds or make doors, and people kind of go towards those things. And I always like being surprised by people. So I'll sometimes say things or do things to get people's, charged, and then they'll surprise me with something that I didn't expect. And then that's when it's beautiful. That's when it's like, okay, now we can get something going because everybody's playing. And that's about the theater too. The theater was all about playing. It was all about you do your homework, your character, you come in, you've researched, you've got all kinds of acting things that you bring to the table, and then you walk in the room and you go, and it's a playful thing. You're constantly bouncing off the other person, and like now it's a little different because people kind of have real lives, and it's not all make believe. So you can't always get people to life or death states at work, but if you can get them to a place of uncomfortability where they're just like, I don't know if I can do it. That's good. That's a great thing, because then it's like, let's try to rise above it. Let's try to come up with something that has never been thought of before.
And then that's where confidence comes in, because when they succeed and when they get over that obstacle, that's true confidence because they've overcome, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Like a beaver. I showed my class this the little clip from this PBS special. It's like an hour long. I posted it on Facebook yesterday, but really, like, beavers, they get their dams torn up every day, and then they go back to the same place and rebuild. And really, they were doing great things for the ecosystems when there were droughts, like in Montana and in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, it's really good. But one thing is they can one beaver can fell like a 12-inch tree in one night. They can do multiple trees, but one 12-inch. And but then they're not like these little beavers are like dragging these little trees, but then the big tree, they have to cut it down and they have to break, just like animation, you're breaking it into little pieces. And as a director, you're breaking it in. Here's the piece that the graphic designer is going to do. Here's the piece the animator is going to do. Here's the hair. I just need you to work on the hair or those pieces. And it's really seeing that. I think that's definitely one of your superpowers for sure, of being able to come in and analyze a situation. But I feel like you really do that well, but you really are selfless in the way that you really want these other people who are coming behind you to feel like they are the hero, right?
Of course. Yeah, I definitely want that. I much rather work with people that want to, work together and come up with the solution, the best solution. It doesn't have to be my solution. I will fill a board or fill a room with ideas. And I expect people to do the same. And when they do, it's like, this is where the magic happens. This is where you're coming in and everyone's giving different perspectives to make the thing. And it's great. It's a wonderful thing.
So Johnny says, I really love Alec. Alec learns just as much about design by theater than design school. I feel that way about my time in music and touring with bands. And then Anne says her thesis topic was design and theater. And then Johnny also said, were you trying to quote Norm Gray from Circus?
It might have been. There's a lot of people that like really hit me with quotes all the time. Yeah. So
and then Joe said, hey, Alec, so I consider myself a storyteller more than a designer in many ways. how has storytelling and having that storyteller's mindset helped you in a design setting? That's a great question. Thanks, Joe.
That's a very good question. Well, I don't like boring design, and a lot of times you get boring stuff. Like, I mean, I get a client that comes in with something that, you know, is very drab, and then it's like, how can I excite this? How can I use what I know to, or how can I tell a better story than what they want? You know, if they want, you know, a car to drive through the scene and they want it to have their logo on the front of the car, it's like, I get it, but how can I tell that in an interesting way? And with movement and shape and form, like I try to use all the things I know to kind of tell that story. Even if I don't get to use words, if I don't get to use anything but movement, I can still tell a story. And I get excited by it because it's a challenge. You know, you're kind of limiting what my options are, but then I'm like, well, you know, the color can change everything. You know, I could change the color of the background. I could change the color of the car. I could change the color. I mean, the only thing I know I have to do is make sure that logo is big enough.
Yeah. So I'm skipping all over the place, but I want to kind of go, because I feel like this is like the backstory, but really this is what makes you a great animator, a great art director. Was there something you learned early on as an actor that in the theater or from acting or from art directing that still impacts you and how you work currently?
Yes. I learned a lot of different acting techniques when I was in theater. And one of the techniques, it was Meisner, and Meisner was all about accepting everything and denying nothing. So a lot of times it's the listening. You got to constantly listen, and if they say something, you got to listen to that. You can't just, you know, throw it to the side and do what you want to do. You got to listen to them, and you got to kind of say, okay, cool, and then you kind of bring in your stuff, and then you're working together to kind of create the solution. And Meisner, I mean, I use that all the time. I sit there and think about it. I also, I do remember a quote from the circus. Sylvia was like the head of the art direction, crazy design stuff that we did. And she said a quote that will always stick with me, and that's, oh, now it's stuck. Now it's gone. No, my mind just kind of froze.
I know it doesn't.
Because it's a quote. No, it's struggle of your work. Hold on. It's find the soul in the struggle of your work. That's another thing that sticks with me all the time. Because a lot of times you'll get into the heat of it, and you're like, what am I doing? I got my stuff stuck, and I don't know what to do. And you try to find that little spark, that thing that like makes you, oh, this is alive. This is something good. I'm going to go with that. And so I always, you know, if I ever get stuck or anything, I always go to something that's pretty, or go to something that, like, you know, gets me out of my head. Because a lot of times, you know, when you're looking at something over and over again, you kind of get in your head. So I want to just make sure I got this down, because is it Sylvia Gaffney? Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is Sylvia Gaffney. Mm-hmm.
So find the soul in the struggle of your work.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I like that. It is good.
Yes.
And Kent wanted to know it anyway, and I'm going to put it in the show notes, Kent. So what about when you have a client that kind of comes in with an idea? Maybe it's the car coming through a scene, and they just have the one thing: we want a car and we want a logo on the car. How do you pitch that work? How hard is it to pitch your kind of maybe a little bit off idea so that it is more of a story?
I always try to pitch more than one idea. That's the first and foremost. Like, you got to have multiple things. And the first idea, typically, I like going big on the first idea, because typically the first thing they see is like, okay, so what is this? And then you can kind of pull back or go a different direction on the next ideas. But I like telling a story that takes them somewhere, like makes them feel like they're a part of it in some way. And I try really hard not to make it too flat of an idea. If it's a flat idea, I'm being lazy. Like, by a flat idea, I mean, you know, it's just, you know, you've seen it 1,000 times. You know, if I were to do a car commercial coming in, it would not be your typical thing. My first idea would never be a bland idea.
So pitch with a good starter.
Yes.
And don't be afraid. Definitely pitch multiples, and don't be afraid to kind of go out there.
Yes, yes.
But you do have to kind of be able to, again, this goes back to your communication. You have to be able to communicate that it's not just you're trying to do something cool because you have a new tool.
Right.
It's because this will help their audience.
Of course. Yeah. It all ties back to the big idea and the strategy you put behind it. I mean, like, that's all pre-work. That's all in terms of coming up with the ideas. You're trying, you've got your like plate of cheese, and you're saying, okay, I'm gonna give you this plate of cheese, and the concept is at the top, and then as you're going down to the very bottom, the very bottom of the plate of cheese is like the type of cheese, the executions and stuff. And I would much rather tell them an interesting, have a grandiose, plate of cheese, like you see all the layers and things, and once they get to it, the bottom, they're tasting it. They're tasting it, and all the things, the steps in between is just, I don't know. It's hard to describe without the visual there, but in my mind, it's when I try to explain concepting to people, it's always like, you can't just say something cool, or you can't just make it about the technology. I mean, a lot of people get stuck on the technology, and they're not really seeing the idea. And how does this solve their problem? How does this get them what they're looking for in a smart way? I don't like bad ads. I don't like it when it's bad. But there are a lot of times it comes, they come in real quick, like casinos. They're like, oh yeah, we want something that, tomorrow, today. And you're like, okay, yeah, great. And then how can I make this poster animated now? Because it wasn't animated before. It wasn't even designed to be animated. They're just like, we want this animated. And I got to make it happen in an interesting way. That's not, sometimes I don't have to pitch those. I just get to make those. But in terms of, concepting, if I get time to concept, I'm going to make as many ideas as I can. Right.
So this goes, I love your, so wait, I was trying to make sure I get all my questions from somebody else, not from me. That's fine. Elizabeth said, did you have any sales experience? Did you ever work in retail?
I worked, when I was in theater, during the summers, I'd sell things. That's when I learned how to sell. And I sold knives. I sold Cutco knives. And then one summer I sold air purification systems, otherwise known as vacuums. And that was rough. That was where I was like, I don't want to ever do this again. But I did learn a lot. I learned a ton in terms of just how to present. I was using all my theater skills then, because I'd go to sell to people, and the air purification systems were a little tricky because you go to like area codes, and you go to these weird area codes, and you're like, I've never been to this part of North Carolina before, and this house has no door. This house had no doors, and that's like But I bring in a vacuum, and I do my little spiel, and it was all acting to me at that point. And but I did learn how to talk to people basically there. I mean, that's basically what it was talking and knowing how to, create a need basically.
Well, and you also have to create comfort, because if you're asking for something, so it's really about reading your audience as well. And I feel like in the theater, and even with a longer animation, you have an end goal. You have what you want them to take away. Just like the Beaver thing that I was watching, it was that, hey, no matter how hard life gets, you will get through it, but stick with your family. Beavers are very family oriented. Not to go back to that Beaver video, but I will.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
It's like 52 minutes, but it was really good. But anyway, and there were some interesting other things about the Beavers, but they really do work and they break things down. But the end goal was that they were going to stop the flow of water. Right. And they were going to build this, and they have these canals and caves, and, and they're protecting their family, and everybody in the family works. And I feel like in animation, you can't just do it alone. It has to be a team, but then you also have to know what that end goal is. And you have to keep that in mind of what we are trying to do. Either we're trying to get people to come, get people to buy something. And it's about understanding how to talk. And we talked about this last week with Jason. He said, these people are coming into this gallery. He's working in a gallery part-time as a designer. And so then, and he just said hi. So, but he said, it's like normal people are coming off the street and they ask the same question. Oh, is this your work? And he's like, no. And then he gets to tell the backstory of the artist. And then they feel like part of the work. But most people don't you watch a movie and you're like, oh, I'm going to make my life better, or something. And it's that end goal that if it's a presentation or if it's an interview or if it's whatever, there is that end goal of, for the beaver, it's stopping the water. For us, it's different things, but you have to really be able to get in the shoes of your client, I think.
Oh, definitely. And that comes with research. I mean, everything I did in theater in terms of research, I try to do here. And even when there's no research available, it's like I start digging through people. I start asking them questions. And if you can ask people the right questions, you start getting things that, oh, wow, I could actually use that information to make something better. Like I know certain clients don't like certain things, not because the client told me, but because these other people, I just watched and listened to them. And I know that whenever I work on certain things, I can be aware of those things. And
also memory, right?
Yeah.
Memory comes really into, I feel like that's one of my superpowers that can kind of remember people. But think about you with lines. That's a skill you had to learn. But now you're using that memory skill in, hey, I remember this client doesn't like this.
Oh, definitely. I would say that I mean, listening's huge. I mean, that's that. And I got my listening things before I went to theater, but the theater enhanced it. And I listened for certain things, and I watch people's body language, and I watch little things that people do that kind of inform me. Oh, wait. I know I need to do, like, especially when I present. When I present, I know if I got you or not. If I don't have you, then I'm going to try something else. And so it's interesting. I mean, I find work interesting, especially in design. I'm very happy to be in this world. Theater was fun, but it was like I was pretending all the time. So, yeah.
All right. So one of the things I love about you is that you do talk in metaphors, and I use a lot of analogies. So me and you are best friends in that department. So I think that they help people from different backgrounds understand different difficult concepts, or maybe difficult to understand concepts. So can you talk about why you like to use these in class, and maybe even at work when you're dealing with a client, or at work when you're dealing with an intern or coworker? And then I'll ask the rest of the question.
Okay. Well, the metaphors I use a lot. I do say I'm planting seeds a lot. I also say that the doors. Like I've always felt like I'm opening, like creating doors, and I don't necessarily want to like tell you which door to go in. I just want to open up doors and make doors. But to see the students or see people I work with go through the doors or make their own doors because they see a door. It's my favorite thing in the world to see somebody see a door, see an option, see an opportunity, and then be like, I'm going. And then they just go through it. And you're like, wow, that was awesome. Or they create their own door because they're like, I now see that. I know what that is. And now I can finally do the thing I didn't think I could do, and I can go through this door. So, yeah, metaphors on the spot are a little tricky because then it's like, I don't know exactly, like I use them when they come up.
Right, and it's a good solution. But how just using them helps to kind of break down some barriers sometimes, because you're coming back to both of us understand this concept,
Sure. Yeah. I like people being on the same page. I also like visually seeing it. Very visual. And I even see word like that quote that I was having trouble with. I saw the quote, but I couldn't say the quote. It just, the words there, I just couldn't read the words. There were pictures, and everything's in pictures for me. So
let's talk about that before we have like 6 minutes left, and then we didn't get it all done, but this was one of the things that I love about you as well, is that you and I have talked about and how you think about things in movement, right?
Yes,
and you see something and you are like, I want to animate that. And I'm like, one time you said it was like a dog I had drawn, and you're like, I want to animate that. And I'm like, what would you do with that? But okay. But I don't even think that way. So I think it's just a really different way of thinking, which maybe a lot of animators do, but I don't. So that I watched something about a cinematograph, where you take, it's really a photograph and then one piece is moving. But it's like you see things like that and automatically think about how this could be built or how it could move to be more interesting. Could you explain how somebody maybe like me who doesn't think like that could begin to start seeing these opportunities or these doors?
Sure. Yeah. It's a lot of times it's looking at the shapes, like I see certain shapes, rounded shapes, and, the way people, like people are fun because they can move in interesting ways. But then you see an object or see something that reminds you of a person just by the way it is, like I've seen, packaging. I look at packaging and I'm like, oh, wow, the packaging, you could animate that. You can have things animate into the packaging and stuff. It's all about, using those design principles or whatnot. I just look for the ones that I don't know, like, it is hard to tell somebody that doesn't think like that, because and after you've been around me a little while, you start talking like me, and it's funny because I hear it from my students, and I'm like, that's because I do talk like that, but like the dog. I actually the dog you were talking about, like I actually had that dog. Hold on, let's see here. Let's do. So your dog, I broke it into layers because again, to animate. So originally it's just on the thing, and then I broke it down, and I looked for looking for places or things to animate, and it's just taking little small things. It's like, what is this? Who's this dog? And the tail had to wag because it just was upright and needed it, and the cocked ear, As I work on this, I'd get more and more excited about like little things, and the eyes and the nose and all that. But it just looking for the simple movement. I mean, the dog wants to be animated, and it's just sitting still right now. But yeah, it has that
personality. It has something, and you could see that it could get more across if it could move, where it could communicate more body language wise. And I think both you and I are both very body language. We are not like straight standers,
Right.
But I think that it helps in communicating our message if we can use body language. So I think a lot of, and maybe the animation is the more communication.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I find myself a lot of times, if something's too, like, doesn't have a build or doesn't have something that's telling the story well enough, a lot of times it needs that extra little bit, or it needs to stop. I mean, like if it is build and then it, explodes to one spot. And again, it's all using the principles I've learned from the past and kind of applying it to what I see in front of me. Yeah, and one more thing, with that secondary action, things, after everything's moved, there's things that still move, and that's kind of a principle of animation. But like I learned that back when I was an actor, where it's like if you want something to have a little bit more force or show a little more, or not indicate, but like to have the follow through in the action, that's I don't know. It's just fun to me. Like when I look at anything, I always see something like that. So
do you have things always come easy to you, or do you think you've had to work hard at some of those things?
Oh, I mean, the things I've had to work for. I mean, like technically, I was never a technical person. I was an actor and pretending. And then when I went to actually really, like, I didn't have to build the whole set. I only had to build the face of it. And then I go to Creative Circus, and they're like, no, you have to build the whole thing, and you got to sell it like it's a real thing. And it was like, wow, this is intense. And that's been helped me. I mean, it's just like, it's just like, it's about more specificity, more, you learn more details. And it's like, how far can you go down the rabbit hole? And when you design something or make something, how can you make it better? And how you take something that's already there and improve it? A lot of times when I see something that isn't moving, I'm like, how can I give it life? How can it breathe?
Right. So I think that sometimes it looks like it's really easy, And so I think that you also have a really positive attitude, and I think the positivity comes across. And so I had this lady who I worked with, and she did face reading. And so you and I both have these. I mean, mine are pretty deep in there. I have a tiny little picture. I can't really see me. But like I have pretty deep lines, and you have some deep lines up there too, right?
Yeah. I've got plenty of wrinkles.
That was one of the things she says, that things didn't really come easy to you. You had to work hard. And I was like, yep. And maybe it was as a kid, I was always like this, like struggling, because school wasn't super easy for me or whatever. So that was one. But I think that being positive, I think that's the beaver, right? That's the internal beaver in us, that we're just going to keep going, because maybe we've seen somebody else do it, and then we think, hey, I can do this. And I don't know, what's your theory on, because you are really positive.
Yeah, I know. I try to be optimistic about everything, because it's a short life you live, and it's like, how can you make an impact? And it's, I know I'm not going to be president tomorrow kind of thing, but if I can tell stories and I can get people excited and inspire somebody to do more than they thought they could do the day before, or like, this for Mardi Gras, I was helping people with resumes. Just because a lot of people were like, I'm so sick and tired of doing this and that. And I was like, yeah, I'll help you with a resume. And this is people at the bar. That's what I'm saying. Like, I help people with a resume at the bar, which is silly, but that's how my brain works. I just get excited about making stuff. And they're like, well, you could do something else, and then help them and see where they go with it. Another thing I also like, when people come back after they've done something and they're like really happy they want to share. And it's I'd much rather share and create than destroy and make people feel bad or be really hoity-toity about my work or anything like that. I'd much rather, create.
I think that's another one of your superpowers, is able to kind of get on board somebody else's game and really help them really, like you're helping lift them up because they have felt like they weren't the hero or whatever. So, but I love your story. I hope that, maybe Kent will get to meet you at Flourish, where for AIGA Mobile, the student conference. I believe you're one of our reviewers, I think.
I'm so excited.
And so Kent will be there, I believe. And so hopefully, he said, so I'll make sure I introduce you to. But I definitely wish we had time to get the rest of these. But I was out of space, and I knew we'll just have to have you back and do a part 2. So that brings me to how to find Alec. So I'm going to put up your Instagram, and I'm going to read it out loud for everybody in iTunes world. Instagram.com/Alec, ALECLEW. His name's Alec Lewis, but clearly it's a fairly common name, so you're Alec Lew, right?
Yes, yeah, for Instagram. I'm probably going to switch some things as I move forward, because again, like I said, promoting myself, a lot of times I'm promoting other things, or I'm trying to fix things, and it's one of those things I do need to get more egocentric, I guess, and make sure that my stuff's out there. And but the Think Alec, my website, I'll be adding more stuff to that as this week's progresses. Actually, it's almost there. It's just not there yet.
So it's THINKALEC.com. So that's his website. So I want to make sure you guys go and check it out. I will be putting the School of Motion, Creative Circus, Grayscale Gorilla, Lester Banks, and then the Sylvia Gaffney quote in the show notes. So if anybody kind of needs those, you can find those at rechargingyou.com, and then you could just look up Alec Lewis and it'll come up. So we are doing a part 2 for Jason because we didn't get to finish his last week, and so he's going to be actually on for maybe 30 minutes next Wednesday. But I have the Makers of One podcast guys, cool. Patrick Hill, Luke Gall, and Andrew Sales are all going to be coming on, and they do their podcast at night. And so it's going to be Monday night. It's spring break, thankfully, so it won't be that big of a deal. It's usually about when I go to bed, but it's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Monday night. So hopefully you guys will have 2 opportunities to check out Design Recharge next week, and I hope you guys will join. And if you aren't signed up to get the newsletter, you can sign up and get the emails for the links every week and then the questions that I ask. Kind of join the family. You can do that at www.rechargingyou.com, and there's plenty of ways to sign up. And you can also follow me at Design Recharge on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But Alec, thank you so much, and I'm really glad to see the dog. Like, I was super excited.
Yeah, I'm probably going to do more to it. I had it on my big computer, and then I when I pull it over here, it was like, oh wait, this isn't the final Fiesta Resistance one that I want to show you, but I'll send it to you sometime soon.
Well, I'm happy just to see it. That was great, and I hope you guys check out. I tried to do a lot of promos to kind of show the variety of work that Alec does. So he's definitely doing video, doing 3D, doing 2D, animating motion graphics, logos, things like that. And I think that it hopefully makes your life not boring, because you said that was one of the reasons you left the theater, and then.
Oh, right? Sure. Yeah. Well, and the theater, the reason I left the theater was because the trajectory just didn't seem like it was opportunity down here, like in terms of creating. As long as I'm in an ad world and like around people that are creative people, that's all I can ask for. And then the teaching too. I mean, the fact that there's always someone to teach. So. And learn from. I mean, I like I said, conferences and stuff, I'd love to go to all of them. So we'll see what happens.
And hopefully next year we can get you to go to Creative South, because I'd love to share you around to those people, which a lot of these people are those people. So I'm very thankful that you were able to be here today and share a little bit of your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you. I've had a great time.
And we do too. So guys, we'll see you next week, and make sure you hook up with Alec on Instagram and check out his website. And we'll see you 2 times next week, and we'll schedule a time for Alec to get the rest of his questions done.
Sounds good.